All right, so it happened and none of us are happy about it. Our good friends Apple was hit with the smackdown today by the European Union for some antitrust practices or issues. Let's take a look at exactly why the stock was fine, or should I say the company was fine, and how the stock reacted. So if you haven't been paying attention, here's what happened today. Apple was hit with a $1.95 billion European Union fine in the Spotify antitrust case, which is interesting because obviously Spotify is in the music space as well. So I'm assuming Spotify is the one who brought this lawsuit against Apple. But the lawsuit was initially for 1.8 billion euros, but then they, for some reason, slapped on about another, I don't know, 0.7 billion or whatever the case may be to take it up to 1.95 for its restrictive practices against Spotify, specifically saying against Spotify and other music services. So it looks like Spotify was the leader on this antitrust lawsuit. So here's what happened. The European Commission had imposed a fine on Apple for preventing Spotify and other music streaming services from informing users about payment options outside its Apple store. So what that simply means is they're basically saying Apple made it seem like that the only way to pay for these services was through their marketplace or through their app and through their music place. And why would Apple want to do that? Well, because it's in their best interest to do that because they actually get a percentage of revenue of all apps or reoccurring subscriptions that are purchased through their app store. So I can't blame them for not really advertising that you could pay for these subscriptions somewhere else outside the store. But I think the European Union is saying that Apple may have used some deceptive practices to make you feel like the only way that you could pay for these services was through their platform so that they can get a piece. Let's just take a further look at this. It says, here, let me make it bigger just in case you can't see it. All right. So again, the European Union imposed a hefty fine for preventing Spotify and other music streaming services from informing users about payment options outside its app store, reported by Reuters. The decision stems from a 2019 complaint by Spotify concerning Apple's 30% app store fees and associated restrictions. So that's what I was talking about is Apple gets about 30% of the revenue of apps or recurring subscriptions or products that are sold through its Apple store and paid for through its Apple store. So they don't really want you buying outside of their store. The European competition watchdog deemed Apple's restrictions as unfair trading conditions, a relatively new argument in an antitrust case. The watchdog also added an additional 1.8 billion euros to the basic fine amount as a deterrent to Apple, citing a significant part of the harm caused by Apple's conduct was non-monetary. So, I mean, they're basically saying we're going to tack on an extra 1.8 billion just to make you think twice before you ever think about doing something like this again. Like, to me, it seems like a cash grab, but we're going to get to the charts in a second and see what that says. But the reason I said Apple again is because they've had some other issues with antitrust. Let's take a look here. You can see this ruling comes on the heels of a series of events that put Apple's App Store practices under scrutiny. So in February, Apple faced backlash from tech giants, including Microsoft, Spotify, and Epic Games over its alternative App Store proposal for EU users. However, a counterfeit cryptocurrency application on Apple's App Store managed to dupe users out of thousands of dollars, highlighting iPhone security fears. So what they're basically saying is Apple is like, look, we're trying to make sure we keep people safe by keeping all the payments through our platform and keeping all the support going through our platform because there are so many bad actors out there and bad characters, is if people can go too many different places to pay for things, it could end up bad for the consumer. So they're like, hey, look, I'm looking out for you, the little guy. I don't know. Do we buy it? I don't know. All right, let's take a look at the stock and see what happened. This is one of our trades that we were in and excited about, but man, it has turned not to be so great real quickly. If you look at the stock, right here is where we were excited about it, because you can see from a technical standpoint, the stock bounced once, it bounced twice, it bounced 3 times. It actually came down through a doji, bounced a 4th time, and then it came back through a doji on Friday, which is an indecision day. I was very well expecting Apple to bounce today, and then this whole antitrust lawsuit thing comes out, smacks the stock down. Well, if you read the report, Apple is obviously going to contest it, and Apple has been known to contest some of these fines and different things and win. So if they can contest it and win, then I think, the stock goes back up, but that could take a while to work through the legal system. All we know is that right now they got smacked down. And I think the smackdown is probably for people thinking like, okay, can they be fined in other countries next? Can they be fined in the US? Can they be fined other places that they do business and perhaps push people to their app store? Now, here's an ounce of good news. If you look at the intraday chart, let me pull this up here. If you look at the intraday chart, this is where Apple gapped down to. So Apple gapped down to about 176.50. And then this was the bottom. This was the floor. And so at least Apple did rally off the floor to the tune of about $1.50. So you can see the floor was about 174. And then we kind of rallied back up going into the ends of the day, almost to 175.50. We gave up about 41 cents going into the close, but at least it didn't stay down at the low of the day, which may or may not end up being a buying opportunity to pick the stock up at a discount, or perhaps to add to a bullish option trading position. We still got the Fed on tap for a 2-day speech this week, so we don't know how that's going to affect the market. But for right now, Apple's down because of this European Union slap that they just gave the company. So let me know in the comments, are you worried about it, or do you think Apple bounces and recovers from this? Let me know. I want to hear from you in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.